Welcome into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us today. I have a jam-packed show for you. So much material that, I almost my buddy Lawton Swan from Clemson Sports Talk always jokes about, hey, we wish we had an extra hour or whatever. I kind of wish I had that today. I've got everything from the Cleveland Indians saying they're not the Cleveland Indians anymore, an identity crisis up in Cleveland that I just don't get. And by the way, if you're a fan of America's team, the Atlanta Braves, I hate to break it to you, but you're next. So are the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, that's going to go away too. Not to be morbid here on a Monday afternoon, but that's kind of what we're dealing with today. I have a jam-packed show full of college football for you, though, which includes the stuff that happened over the weekend. And I look at this stuff and it makes me kind of crazy. And what I mean by that is that if I told Gamecock fans that you could hire a coach and in 8 years now, this coach would bring you, he'd win 30, he'd be 34 games over 500, give you an SEC title, national championship runner-up, 2 SEC East titles. They would rename the stadium after whatever the coach is. They'd probably rename Columbia to insert coach name here. But you know what? Down in Auburn, they're not going to do that. That was not good enough. Gus Malzahn, take your butt on out of here. You're gone. Now, don't feel bad for Gus Malzahn. The guy's getting $21 million, okay? Half of it in 30 days, and then the other half in over a 4-year period. So this guy is going to get paid, all right? So I don't feel sorry for him. But I do feel sorry for the fan base at Auburn, and I'll tell you why. What a spoiled bunch of fans. What exactly do you want, Auburn? What exactly do you want? Not necessarily the entire fan base, but the people that run Auburn as far as the boosters and everything else. Because I don't know. And to be honest, it's sad that the administration did this too. Now, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes there, but I do understand one thing. College football is about wins and losses. This guy is 3-5 against Nick Saban at Auburn. Okay? In 8 years, he's 3-5, 1 game away from 500. There are not a lot of coaches that have that capability or can actually say that about their resume. Gus Malzahn can. I don't get it. It's one of the weirdest hires ever. Shout out to Brandon watching online. Yeah, 33 games over 500. That's not good enough at Auburn. One of the dumbest hires, one of the dumbest firings that I've seen. And you know what? They better have their stuff together. And they better have somebody that's going to say yes. And by the way, if you're the person that's saying yes, your ego is off the charts. Because you're going in there knowing that if you're 35 games over 500 or 33 games over 500, that's not going to be good enough. If you play Nick Saban 8 times and you win 3 of them, that's not good enough. If you have consistent top 10 classes in the 247 sports composite rankings, that's not good enough. No. At Auburn, they think that, and this is just me judging from the outside looking in, you've got to beat Alabama all the time. Now, there is one stat that really does stick out against Gus Malzahn. And after thinking about it last night, it's a pretty bad stat. On the road, against his big-time rivals of Alabama, Georgia, and LSU, in the 8 years that he's been there, he's been to each of their stadiums 4 times, and he's lost. Okay? So of those 35 losses, basically a third of them are to those 3 teams. That is not good. You need to kind of win some of those games. But if you're not, still 33 games over 500. But you know what? At least Auburn, they're going to pay for it. They're going to pay for that big batch of stupidity that they've got. But you know who I feel worse for? Texas. Texas has the problem of being a well-done steak. You know how you get a steak and you put it on the grill and you overcook it and you can't go back and make it a little less rare? Texas, rumor has it, that they went out and tried to get Urban Meyer to come there and coach. Now, they have the money. They've got their own network, for goodness sake. The Big 12 is their, they should just call it the Texas Conference. That's pretty much what they're going with there. Here's the thing, though. When you stop and look at it, they tried to get that steak undercooked again. And what does that get you? You can't go back and do that. You just can't. So with that, they tried to get a replacement for Tom Herman. Now they come out and Tom Herman's our coach. That's what they're trying to spin that as, even though they wanted to get rid of Tom Herman, who, by the way, didn't do nearly as well at Texas as Gus Malzahn did at Auburn. And let's not make any mistake about it. As far as money and facilities and getting whatever he wanted, Tom Herman got everything. Gus Malzahn, maybe not so much. Maybe not so much. But I feel worse for Texas because now they've got Tom Herman and they have to stick with him. Even though he knows now that they don't want him. There's certain people at Texas that don't want him. And guess what? They're going to have to deal with him. And you know what that means for next season? Yeah, you're going to have maybe a lot of the recruits that would normally go to Texas. There's going to be people from Oklahoma and LSU and everybody across that region that are going to tell all of these guys, hey, guess what? You shouldn't go there because he may not be the coach anymore. That's what's going to happen down there now. Any assistance that you could bring in to try to help fix some of the problems that you got there? Yeah, not so much. That's not happening either. Why would you go somewhere and work if you know your boss is going to get fired in a year? I don't really like to predict crazy things here on the rundown, but I'm willing to bet on December the 14th, 2021, as my good friend Miss Haili, who I used to work for, would say, if the good Lord is willing and the creek don't rise, and I'm doing this show, we're going to be talking about Texas, and we're going to be talking about who they're going to get to replace Tom Herman. What does that mean? This entire season is a loss. If you're a Texas fan and you're listening to this show, whether you're right here in the Midlands on Fox Sports Radio 1400, around the world on the iHeartRadio app, or watching on Facebook or YouTube today, just understand your season next year is hot dog water. Because guess what? Even if Tom Herman comes in and they win, let's say they go 9-3 next year, which is a good season. The idea of good recruits coming there this season, you're already behind a recruiting class. Just saying. Out to the phones we go. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Good afternoon. Welcome into the rundown. And let's try it again. Good afternoon. Welcome into the rundown. Hello. It's your turn. How about it? All right. Well, maybe they'll call back. Anyway, but that's what we're dealing with today is a wasted season. Edwin with a great comment online. Les Miles was 62-28 conference record. Overall, 77% at LSU. There's a big difference, though, between Gus Malzahn and Les Miles. Les Miles was trying to run an offense from the 1960s. I mean, let's just be completely honest on that. That's what he was doing. So I think that's a little bit of a difference there, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's interesting. But those two things, the coaching carousel, it's going to be interesting. By the way, Vanderbilt has found their new coach as they get the defensive coordinator from Notre Dame, a young man, or I say a young man, a coach that actually played for them at fullback. His name's Coach Lee. And Coach Lee, I guess he's going to finish out with Notre Dame and then go and take on Vanderbilt. Bless him. You talk about moving into a spot where nothing is guaranteed. Wow, that's not going to work at all. All right, so we got some stuff from the weekend I want to go over. And, of course, you can join us anytime at 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. You know, I don't like to think that Ed Orgeron's going anywhere, even though you've heard stuff, and it's like, I don't know, really? Okay, whatever. Here's the thing with this. I want to get into this with the LSU game. As LSU goes down to the Swamp, and they are a 24-point underdog in a fog, and they go down there and get what I think is quite possibly one of the biggest SEC upsets as far as conference plays go that I've ever seen in my existence on this planet. Okay? There's an incident with a shoe. We'll get into that in a moment. But the fact that the game came down to this.
Placement is down. Kick is up. It's on its way, and this kick is no good! Tigers win! Tigers win! They explode up the far sideline. And number 6 goes down tonight at home in Gainesville. 37-34. LSU is the winner.
All right, so that's LSU radio on the call. The fact that it got to that says a lot about the coaching staff at Florida. Now, I know that you're saying that I'm going to pile on. There was an incident where a Florida defender on third down, he makes the tackle on the LSU player, or someone makes the tackle, and another player gets up and slings the shoe down the field. Picks up the shoe and slings it down the field. And it ended up being one of the weirdest things ever. Okay, that 15-yard penalty ended up leading to LSU getting themselves into a position where they could kick what eventually would be the game-winning field goal. And by the way, their kicker, hats off to this guy. He kicked it an absolute country mile. I mean, I think it was 59 yards. Now, Dan Mullen, who I'm convinced is a good football coach, I just think that he's a horrible idiot. That's the best term that I can use on the radio without saying things that are going to get me booted out of here. Without iHeart Brass coming down the hall and just kicking me out of my face, the only thing that I can say is horrible idiot. So this is what Dan Mullen said afterwards in his press conference. This is a Division I Power 5 coach at a program that is considered an SEC blue blood. This is what the head coach said.
What did you see with Marco Wilson's decision?
Oh, I didn't see that. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a penalty. I have no idea what happened. I didn't see it. So, I mean, you guys probably, I don't know. Did you guys see it? I don't know.
You threw a guy's shoe.
Okay. They called a penalty on it. So.
Yeah. And by the way, the official came out and said, personal foul, unsportsmanlike conduct. Number 3, throws his shoe 20 yards down the field, almost like he measured it out. You want to know what happened in this game? And I'm not taking anything away from LSU, because what Coach Orgeron did was he said, you know what I'm going to do? The same thing that Rob Sanders would do. I'm going to take all of my youngins, all of my guys that I recruited that are all highly thought of, and I'm going to put them out there, and we're going to let them play. Now, we may lose by 60, but we're going to play. And what did they do? They went out into the middle of the fog, and they beat the number 6th ranked team in the country. So I'm not taking anything away from them. That's not fair. But let's just be completely honest here. Florida lost that game because they were more worried about what's going to happen to them this coming Saturday. They were more worried about getting into that SEC championship game against Alabama and squaring off with Nick Saban. They were more worried about that than they were this LSU team that was coming in, that 24-point underdog. I'll stand by that. You don't make dumb decisions like that if you're locked in. Can you imagine what Nick Saban would have said to that young man if he would have done that? He would have made him walk home from Gainesville. That's what would have happened. Insane with that play. And it ends up, that didn't really cost them the game. They were pretty much out of it anyway. Not being able to convert inside the 5-yard line. When you're the number 6 team in the country, you kind of have to do those things. And it ended up being a mess. We're taking your calls this afternoon at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. If you want to join us here on The Rundown, of course, we will take those calls. You can respond on Twitter. I'm at Rob Sounds Good. You can also follow on Facebook and respond to the show there as well. More of The Rundown when we come back. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yeah, best chance they got is to run Miss Mullen through the locker room. Edwin wins. Let me highlight that one, Edwin. That's perfect. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. Maybe, can anybody give me something other than that? I don't know. Fake news, Fox. No, Fox Sports doesn't do anything that involves the news, so I don't know what you're talking about, buddy. Anyway, yeah, I think that Mullen's a complete idiot, by the way. Just my opinion. Ill prepared. There we go. What a mess, man. What an absolute mess. You might be right about that, man. Marcus on that. I don't know if the Gamecocks are going to there's talk about people maybe Malzahn wants to be an offensive coordinator. I don't think he wants that job. All right, here we go. Welcome back to The Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world in the iHeart Radio app. Appreciate you checking us out. Some other things we're going to get into today. I thought about this earlier today. We've had, of course, Ohio State shoved down our throat. They get to sit home and play 5 games and go to the Big Ten championship game. And yeah, even though they didn't win as many games as any team at as Indiana in their division, the fact that Indiana has 6 conference wins and Ohio State has 5 should tell you something. The fact that they had to struggle to beat them in the horseshoe should tell you all you need to know about Ohio State. Anyway, the team that no one really talks about is Southern Cal. Yes, Southern Cal. We just heard the news at the top of the hour on the sports update there that we're not going to have a Pac-12 championship game. So Southern Cal is going to be an undefeated team that people aren't even going to look at, especially after picking up the win on Saturday.
Thompson Robinson being rushed, rolls away from the problem, comes back against the grain this way, winds and throws for the end zone into the cluster, and it is knocked away, incomplete. There are no flags, and the ball game is over, and the Trojans run onto the field, and UCLA comes up just a little bit short. The Trojans come back and win the ball game after trailing 28-10 and 35-23. Shut them out when they had to. Now there's a little bit of talking going on, but you really don't want to do that after a game like this that could have been won by anybody. Just go ahead and celebrate with your mates. Shake hands with the guys you know on the other side. The Trojan players saying, go to your locker room, get off the field. And USC wins the ball game by a final of 43-38.
All right, so with that, here's what you're going to get from the fools at the Four Letter Network and the talking heads and everything else. They're going to tell you, doesn't matter that another Power 5 team ended up with a completely winning season, didn't lose a game. Ohio State's just better. Ohio State's just better. You are too stupid of a fan to understand that Ohio State is just better. In fact, Ohio State shouldn't have had to play a game at all. They should have just gotten you ever see one of the, what is it in Monopoly where you get one of those all the way around the board pieces? Yeah, move your piece to go. Ohio State, in the eyes of ESPN and all of these stupid sports writers, and I said that, you can respond to me at Rob Sounds Good, and I will bounce your journalistic butt right on out the door. They're going to tell you Ohio State, they should just play for the championship all the way through. They don't even need to go to the semifinals. Just put them in the national championship game because we said so. That's basically what it boils down to. You know what? I firmly believe that everything eventually balances out in the end, but I believe this too. Wouldn't it be great if Northwestern just stomped them? Just stomped them. And then we'd have to hear the Ohio State fans crying to the end of time. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying that Southern Cal should be in the mix either, but I'm just saying the hypocrisy of putting Ohio State in there just because they passed the quote-unquote eye test, even though you didn't get to watch them for a full season. You should be ashamed of yourselves if you think that, oh, well, they should just go and everyone else should just deal with it. Nah, Texas A&M, doesn't matter that you went, 9-1 in SEC play. That doesn't matter. Ohio State should be playing for the national championship. In fact, why even play the final? Why even just give it to Ohio State? It's ridiculous. I mean, their own conference didn't want them playing in July, but we'll just give them the national title. Karma comes back to get you eventually. And I don't want bad things to happen to the Ohio State players. I'm not talking about injury or anything else. But I think in the end, it's going to come back to bite them. And you know what? One of these grizzled veteran teams, like let's say it's a Notre Dame team with one loss to Clemson, or if it's Clemson, or if it's whoever, your other team is. Okay? The entire world, I think, is going to be at a point where, at least in the South, now I know up in Big Ten country, they're going to want, Ohio State has to go. Didn't you hear what the ESPN people said? Yeah. Ohio State has to go. That's what you have to deal with. Yeah, but the people who actually watch football and actually care about it and think that it's not about just being the prettiest girl in the show, it's about actually going out there and actually performing. That's what you're supposed to do. It's not a looks contest. It's a matter of what you do. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Anthony says, who can Auburn hire that can win more games than Malzahn? I don't know. But Anthony, if you know, why don't you go after the AD down there? I'll look up his name for you here shortly. Here we go. Out to the phones. Good afternoon. Welcome into the rundown.
Rob Sanders.
Yes.
This is Buckeye John.
Hi, Buckeye John.
How are you?
How are you, sir? Are you having a good holiday season?
Yes. How about yourself?
I am. My wife's got the Christmas trees up, brother. What can we talk with you about today on the show?
Well, it looks like Ohio State and Clemson are both going to win their conference title games.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that Notre Dame has the potential that they can stop Clemson, and Ohio State hasn't played enough people for me to favor them in anything. But let's say that they do for the sake of argument here.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm tired of your Buckeye hate, but I'm just telling you, Ohio State dominated Clemson last year when they played them. Look at the final statistic.
Right. What was the score of the game?
I know Clemson won the game, but I'm just saying, you act like Ohio State is like a MAC team or something.
I'm not saying they're a MAC team. It has nothing to do with last season. My thing with them this season is that they haven't played enough games.
I agree, but just
okay. So we agree on that.
Ohio State has so much NFL talent on the team. I mean, they're one of the top.
I get that, man. But under that logic, South Carolina in 2012, the team with Connor Shaw, the best quarterback South Carolina ever had. Mike Davis was a backup to Marcus Lattimore. Jadeveon Clowney's on that team. Under that logic, they should have won the SEC. You win championships by playing the games. That's the whole point of it.
Okay, but I'll leave you one last thought.
Sure.
Please explain to me what a catch and fumble is like that Clemson wide receiver did last year. I'll let you take the mic.
Sure. Appreciate it. All right. So here with that, I don't have to explain any of that because the referees do that for me. The referees have said point blank that that wasn't a catch and fumble. I don't get paid to referee games. I tell you what I can see, though. I can see that Justin Fields had twice the amount of interceptions in that game against Clemson last season than he did against the entire Big Ten schedule that he played. Maybe that had a little bit more to do with Ohio State dropping that game than a potentially blown call by the officials. I've always heard turnovers can do things that can salt away a game. Maybe that has a little bit to do with it. Maybe if Justin Fields doesn't throw twice the amount of interceptions he's thrown all year, maybe Ohio State wins that game. Maybe. I don't know. Evan with a good point. Florida dominated LSU statistically on Saturday. Guess who won the game? That's how it works. You can dominate all the stats that you want, but the reality is that at the end of the day, the only one that matters is the score. Take your calls at 803-978-1832. Thanks for calling the show, though. I appreciate it. Love people that think differently than I do. You're more than welcome to call in. I'll be polite. I got some home training. 803-978-1832. We'll talk a little bit more about some other stuff that came up from the weekend, and we'll talk later on about another mess that's up in Ohio. Yeah, we'll talk about that and a lot more in just a moment. You're listening to The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. I love Ohio State fans. They're priceless. Why is it that I point this out as Buckeye hate? Can anybody help me with that? Do I wake up every morning thinking that Ohio State is an absolute travesty? No. I just want them to play their games. Keep getting it shoved down our throat. Maybe that's part of the reason that I don't like it. I don't know. Edwin's funny. I just don't get it. I'm trying not to be just the dumb Southern hick fan, but that's just the way that it is. I'll wear the Southern Hick thing on my head if I have to. That's kind of how I look at this thing. Just stop. I got to check on the Oregon-Washington thing. I got to see. I'll look at that. I just heard the headline beforehand. Thank you for that, Edwin. I kind of go into a bubble before I do the show. That way my brain doesn't go all over the place. Because ADD is tough. It's like my poor brain's all over the place, man. It's crazy. Well, welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Appreciate the caller earlier. You can join the show at 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. Out to Twitter we go. At JJ Samorian online says, at Rob Sounds Good. Totally agree on Dan Mullen. No class at times this year. Yeah, he's had some silly things he said this season, and I'm not going to get into all of it. We may recap the year. Generally, I do that at the end of the season. We kind of recap what's happened at the throughout the season, and I generally don an idiot of the year in college football. He might win the title this year. He might. A couple of comments from the chat room over here. Jimmy says the team that scores the most points wins. Exactly. You can have 700 plus yards and hold a team to 90 yards. If the score is 7-3 and they win, ta-da! That's how that works. Has absolutely nothing to do with, time of. You can look at time of possession as a way to say, hey, this is how the game flowed. You could look at total yards as the way the game was matched up. In the end, it's all about what the score was. All right. Anyway, shout out to JJ Samorian for checking us out. Appreciate him joining the show today. I want to get into this about. I got to check. I think that Oregon may be replacing Washington in the Pac-12 championship game. I got to check that out. If that's the case and Southern Cal wins that game, then what? Then what? Are we just what they did doesn't matter? Maybe the Pac-12 doesn't get acknowledged as being a Power 5 conference. Maybe we should drop down to the Power 4. And that's not a joke. If we're not going to take the Pac-12 seriously and say, hey, you're undefeated champion in the middle of a COVID-type season, yeah, that doesn't matter. Take your butt on to the New Year's Six Bowl. And by the way, who do you get to play? It may end up being Coastal Carolina, who, by the way, I thought they were going to lose this game the other day against Troy. They were down late, and Coastal, they rally the troops, man.
McCall to pass, looks, comes down the middle, is caught by Hiley. He can score the touchdown. Shot it clears with 35 seconds left. Touchdown, Coastal.
And with that, Coastal Carolina moves on to be 11-0.
Late in the game with just a minute and 20 seconds left, down by 3. The Chanticleers are able to go 75 yards in 45 seconds. Grayson McCall to Javon Hiley for the game winner. Final score from Troy, Alabama. Coastal Carolina 42. Troy 38.
All right, so with that, if you look at Coastal's resume, they will play Louisiana this weekend for the Sun Belt Championship. By the way, a matchup of two top 15 teams, something like that, 17 teams, as Coastal moves up to 10th in the AP poll. Here's the interesting thing on that. At the end of the year, if Coastal can win that game against Louisiana, they will have 3 wins over teams in the top 25. 2 of them will be against Louisiana, the other one against BYU. They'll also have a top 25 win over Kansas. Now, I know Kansas is a gong show. I completely agree with you on that. But that is a heck of a resume for a Power 5 team. Now, I give you Coastal on this front. I'm not saying Coastal, if you give them the Ohio State eye test, where we're just supposed to say, oh, they have talent. That's kind of what we're taught with Ohio State. Coastal doesn't have that. What Coastal has is grit, a bunch of guys running around with mullets, and an offense that is from the Stone Age but jazzed up to 2020. That's what you get with this Coastal Carolina team. And you know what? They may end up matching up in a New Year's Six Bowl against one of these teams that doesn't make the college football playoff. They'll probably be the lowest rated team out of the 12 teams from the New Year's Six, whatever it boils down to. And they may end up drawing the top one there. If you remember Georgia a couple years ago, Georgia had a team that was light years better than Texas. They go into this Sugar Bowl matchup, and I think it was a Sugar Bowl they played in. They didn't want to be there. You know who wants to be in this New Year's Six game? The Chanticleers. And I guarantee you, whoever they go up against, they're going to be undermanned. They're not going to have half the talent that they've got. But whoever they get, look out. Not saying they're going to win. I'm just saying they're going to compete because they actually want to be there. And it's not going to be this whole thing of, oh man, we should have been in the playoff, but we're not. Oh, we got to go play Coastal. This sucks. We don't want to do that. But that is, if you're a G5 team, 3 wins over top 25 teams and a win over a Power 5 conference team, that is solid. Absolutely solid. And why somebody's not beating down the door of Jamie Chadwell. And oh, by the way, bring your offensive coordinator, Willie Korn, with you. Because he's a big part of it too. Why those two aren't somewhere else, I have no clue. And I can't yell loud enough where they can hear me at Auburn. But if I were Auburn, that's what I would think about. You're going after all these big time names that have done stuff in the past and trying to quote unquote revive Auburn, even though you were 33 games over 500 with your past coach, won an SEC title. Yeah, all of that. I would go with Jamie Chadwell. Out to the phones we go. Good afternoon. Welcome into the rundown. Hello. Rundown, you're on the air. Have at it. All right, well, call back. Anyway, I would go with Jamie Chadwell. That makes the most sense to me. Why not? Do you really, I mean, the idea of even getting someone like an Urban Meyer, who, let's be honest, he won games everywhere he went, but he kind of left baggage everywhere he went too. Just saying. It's a mess, an absolute mess on the college football coaching carousel front. And the only name that I would trust out there is Jamie Chadwell right now. I know it's one season, but my goodness, what's he got to do? There's two guys, I've been on Dave Clawson forever up at Wake Forest. If you want to build a program, that's what you go with. Those two. Anybody else is an absolute roll of the dice. If you want to do that and you want to put your multi-million-dollar program on the roll of a dice, have at it. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call. If you want to join us here on the rundown this afternoon on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeart Radio app, John sends me a message. Stop with your nonsense, bro. Ohio State beat Clemson last year, and I know it. I don't remember that, John. It's not what the scoreboard says. Good afternoon. Welcome to the rundown.
Yeah, I was wondering if you think South Carolina jumped the gun by hiring Shane Beamer now that Gus Malzahn's available.
You know, some folks have, that's been kind of the word on Twitter and everything. And I personally, here's the thing that with Shane Beamer, I don't know what he's going to bring. I do know that Gus Malzahn is a winner. He's done it in the SEC West. He's the only coach that, I think that's the only program in the country where you're going to play Georgia, LSU, and Alabama and Texas A&M every season. So a quarter of your games are guaranteed to be against top 25 teams. And I think Gus Malzahn, if you could get him to come to South Carolina, that would be great. I'm not saying that he would be above it. I'm just saying that they didn't know that was going to happen with him. He didn't know. He was dancing in the stadium down at Mississippi State, so he had no clue either. But as far as jumping the gun, we don't really know until Shane Beamer gets some mud under his tires and see how he deals with it. I mean, me personally, though, I like the Shane Beamer hire because it goes away from what South Carolina has done, which is basically get folks that have made their bones somewhere else. Shane Beamer wants to be here, and he's made that abundantly clear, and he wants to try to build something at South Carolina, and that's refreshing and different. So in my opinion, just from the outside of right now in December, the Beamer hire looks pretty good for South Carolina.
And I have one more question. Did
Sure.
you see where the ACC has hired a guy from Northwestern to be the commissioner?
I have seen that. I was going to go over that after the next break. With stuff like that and the way that John Swofford is kind of, oh man, I mean, I kind of have weird feelings about that. I don't know exactly how, I think his name is Jim Phillips from Northwestern, how that's going to work out. But as far as the ACC goes, I wonder if they're going to shift a little bit more. And what I mean by that is that get away from North Carolina and Duke basketball run everything to, hey, maybe we should try to go and get Notre Dame to join the conference as a football school. And let's make it a little bit more about football. We have the capability with our basketball powers here. If we could add football as being where the conference, I know they care, but let's be honest. Do they really care? And as much as about Duke and UNC basketball, I don't think so.
Well, no, I don't think so either.
I think if they could actually get to a point where they could have both, they could theoretically be a true super conference.
Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Have a good day. Thanks for joining the show. 803-978-1832. As I was saying, John's giving me nonsense here saying that Ohio State beat Clemson last year. I'm going to look for that on the scoreboard stuff last year. I don't remember seeing that. Help me out over there, chat room. Did Ohio State beat Clemson last year in football? I don't think so. By the way, shout out to Edwin, who I'm going to make the executive producer of this show. He sent me the release here saying the Pac-12 has, after consultation with Washington, made the decision to replace Washington with Oregon as the Pac-12 North Division team to face South Division champion USC Southern Cal in the Pac-12 championship game scheduled for this Friday night. So Southern Cal has the opportunity to go in and beat the team that we were thinking was going to be a top 5 team all season. Oregon's trying to drift it off a little bit, but what an interesting thing there. What if they win? We're just supposed to ignore that, though. Yes, 4-letter network. The Pac-12 doesn't matter. 10-game seasons in the SEC where you go 9-1, that doesn't matter. Let's just put our trophy date up there. That's all we really need. More of the rundown in just a moment on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yeah, I know that, Dennis, but they hey, thank you, McD. Appreciate that, buddy. Appreciate you watching the show. The ACC's been offered Notre Dame a spot in the conference and they declined. Yeah, I know. And to be honest, I don't blame Notre Dame. I don't, because it comes down to the almighty dollar. And with that TV contract, well, until Notre Dame gets popped for playing out of conference, which we can't really talk about that right now because, the whole COVID thing. But once they get popped for not playing in a conference championship game and they get left out, then they're going to be coming back. But let's be honest on this too. Notre Dame should be in the Big Ten. They shouldn't even be in the ACC. And it's not that they don't belong. I'm just saying geographically. That's why I love Mizzou, because I love the Mazodcast, which, by the way, if you don't listen to that, one of the funniest football shows ever. Mizzou doesn't really belong in the SEC simply because of the geographics of it. Mizzou's a Big 12 team. West Virginia doesn't belong in the Big 12. It's a mess the way that they've done all this stuff, man. It really is. I appreciate you guys watching, man. We do this every day at 3. If you guys want to check us out. It's nice to have you folks talking along in the chat room there. I don't remember that, Jimmy. Why are you messing with me, Jimmy? You're funny, Jimmy. Hilarious. I just hit my ear headphones on the microphone. Silliness. Welcome back to the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeart Radio app. You know, the Cleveland Indians have decided they're going to change their name. And I hate to be the guy that sounds like I'm not sensitive to other people's feelings, but I guess I'm not sensitive to other people's feelings. Send your hate tweets to @RobSoundsGood. And I'll be happy to barter with you back and forth on Twitter about it. But the Cleveland Indians, according to the New York Post, by the way, won't change their name until after the 2021 season. So you know what that tells me? This is nothing but a publicity stunt. If they truly cared about offending Native Americans with the name the Cleveland Indians, they would have changed their name immediately. Absolutely immediately. Instead, they're going to wait until after the upcoming season to do that. Why not do, and I've mocked them for this, why not do what Washington did and just call yourself the Cleveland Baseball Club? Washington calls themselves the Washington Football Team. That makes the most sense to me. Paul Dolan. Here's the problem. I didn't know Paul Dolan owned the team. He's the cousin of Knicks and Rangers owner James Dolan, who has run the Knicks and the Rangers into the ground. Told the AP on Monday, the nickname is no longer acceptable in our world, but we're going to make you watch it for another year. Doesn't matter that we think it's quote unquote unacceptable. This is nothing more than a PR move, in my opinion. Absolute PR move. And it's sad. It really is. And by the way, other teams are going to be in the mix too. The Atlanta Braves, look for them to change their name. Kansas City Chiefs, they're probably going to change their name. Everyone, I have to read Edwin's comment here. Every one of them should call themselves ass clowns. You can't offend asses or clowns. Very good, sir. Very good, sir. Why can't I want to get a shirt made that says the Cleveland Ass Clowns? Why not? What a Edwin done broke me up, man. That's funny. Look, I know there are sections of Native Americans that may find this offensive, but you can find anything offensive. I mean, we're getting to a point in society where everything can offend everybody. You know, and it's just, I just don't get it. We'll take calls on that too at 803-978-1832. Brandon just says online, Shiloh Sanders for the Gamecocks has entered the transfer portal. Oh, man. We kind of knew some of this was going to happen. But you know what? In the grand scheme of things, and I know this sounds like I'm being completely morbid, the last two South Carolina teams went a combined, 6-17, something like that. Why not wipe the team clean? The only player I would want to keep, to be completely honest with you, is Kevin Harris. Not disrespecting all the other guys on the team. There's some other players that I'm sure play hard. Sedarius Hutcherson, I wish we could clone him with his heart. Clone Hutcherson, clone Kevin Harris. That's what the Gamecocks need to do, in my opinion. See how that works out. But yeah, there's a ton of people that are entering the transfer portal, and it's a mess when it comes to that. And there's going to be issues with that next year because you can leave and play whenever you want. Another good point. Is he going to go play for his dad? Why wouldn't he? Why would you not go and play for your pops if you can get away with it? Just saying. I can understand why he's doing this because he doesn't know who the new defensive coordinator is going to be. You don't know. You don't know if you're going to jive with those guys or not. Just saying. You came in thinking you were going to be there with Coach Muschamp, and you're not. Coach T-Rob's gone too. So I can understand why he's leaving. And Gamecock fans, let me walk you back from the cliff a little bit here. You've got to go into this thinking with Shane Beamer that it is a completely, he's going to have players. I said that from before. But you have to think that a lot of these guys, especially dealing with the pandemic, are going to go somewhere else. And it's not just going to affect the Gamecocks, by the way. It's going to be across the board. Lots of teams are going to have these problems. I guarantee you Clemson's going to have some folks that are going to transfer because they've got an opportunity to do it without even losing eligibility. They can just literally leave campus and go play somewhere else. It's going to be a mess. Shout out to Greg checking us out late, brother. You can catch the restream later on there on the YouTube channel. You can also find the podcast at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk takes over next. We're going to be back at it tomorrow. I've got some great stuff planned for us later on this week. A couple of former Gamecock players are going to join us. And I've got someone from that follows the Irish that's going to join us too. So we'll talk about the ACC championship game. My name is Rob Sanders. I am on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Thanks for checking us out on the rundown. I appreciate it. We'll be back with you tomorrow right here at 3 o'clock on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Hey, I appreciate you guys on YouTube, man. If you like the channel, hey, like it, appreciate it. Give it a thumbs up so people can see it as trying to build a good show here in the afternoon. Help out Jackpot with his channel. Get him some more views too. So you guys could like the show over there. That would be great. It'd be awesome if you could do that for us. So thanks so much. Don't forget our Pick'em Challenge. If you want to do our Bowl Pick'em Challenge, get at me on Twitter. I'm at Rob Sounds Good on Facebook. Edwin's already in. He's already running his mouth saying he's going to win the whole damn thing. Just saying. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you later.